Good afternoon and welcome to Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia.
We are going to explore the main sites of Ulaanbaatar today. We are right outside the Gandan Monastery. Main temple here is right behind us. And Gandan is actually the most popular monastery, the most visited one in all of Mongolia. And I don't know the full name, but it translates in English to Great Temple of Complete Joy. Now, if that doesn't sound wonderful, then I don't know what does.
That sounds joyful. Let's go and check it out.
Whoa, that statue is huge. It is 26 meters high and it's fully gold on the outside. And on the inside it is completely hollow. It contains 27 tons of medicinal herbs, a complete gur, and furniture. So that's all in this statue, which is a random little fact for you.
These round copper tongues are called prayer wheels. They're used in Buddhist temples to pray. In general, people don't recite the prayers. They roll the rolls where the prayers are written on them, so it's considered equivalent to praying.
Most of the visitors, at least the ones that are here right now, aren't travelers or tourists. They're locals that come here to pray and to worship. So really Buddhists. And this is one of the main attractions in all of Ulaanbaatar, one of the most famous monasteries in Mongolia. Not that many people here, so it's pretty nice. And right as I say that, a tourist walks past. So in the early 19th century, there were a lot of temples and monasteries all over Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah, there were actually more than 100 monasteries and temples serving a population of 50,000 people.
But today, only a handful of these buildings remain in Ulaanbaatar because in the 1930s there was a huge purge of all religious buildings. A lot of them were lost.
By our friends the Soviets. In 1937 they started destroying most of the religious symbols, including monasteries, churches, and I don't know what else.
And it wasn't until the 1990s that people could actually start practicing their faith, which is mostly Buddhist in this area.
The really nice thing about these monasteries is how lushfully they are decorated. They've got very colorful roofs with blue, red, some parts are even covered in gold. Somebody's praying. They don't use any screws or nails or anything to build the roof. So the roof is just layers of wood stacked on top of each other in a certain way with a certain technique that they use, and they've used this for centuries.
One thing that is pretty famous and pretty horrible in Ulaanbaatar is the traffic. It is horrible. I mean, look at these traffic jams. It's not even rush hour yet. It's not even close to rush hour.
It's because the population increased so much. About every 10 years they have one very harsh winter, but in the last 15 years I think they had 2 or 3, which is very exceptional. But that means that a lot of the livestock of the nomadic people died and they weren't able to recover from the harsh winter, so a lot of them just moved to Ulaanbaatar because they had no other option. They had to come here to survive.
So nomadic lifestyle is not sustainable if you don't have any livestock. You need them for dairy, for meat, and if you don't have that, you have to come to the city, get a job, live the urban life, and you have to get a car, join the traffic. And we're now walking to the winter palace of the Bogd, which is also a little bit outside of the city center, right like the monastery, but the monastery is on the complete other side. So it's a 40-45 minute walk from where we were. And that is one of the main sites in Ulaanbaatar as well. After that, we are going to take you into the city center, show you the main square and a few things around there. But first, we brave the traffic and the smog. We go to the palace. This may just be the coolest place that we have visited in Ulaanbaatar so far.
Yeah, really. This is the winter palace of the Bogd. It was built at the end of the 19th century by
the Bogd, who is the last king of Mongolia. And a Khan is actually someone in Mongolian terms who rules like a clan or a tribe. So there were a lot of Khans. The Bogd is special because he was the last king of Mongolia. But look at it. I mean, this looks
really amazing.
Incredible.
Wow, this is incredible.
It seems like this is a sort of courtyard space. If we twirl around, we twirl around in the same direction. Look!
I don't think the lighting is very good, but... It's pretty cool. I mean, just look at this. It's surrounded by small temples, palaces.
I actually didn't expect this building style in the temples in Mongolia. I would have thought this was Chinese.
Yeah, indeed.
I don't mean to insult anyone here or mix up the cultures, but
I think it's some kind of at least similar building style from what I remember from when I visited Forbidden City. There was also a big mix between the empires throughout history, so I think they at least have influenced each other.
so dope. And this little shed is probably where the Khan stayed during his 20 years that he lived there. Without a doubt, he's a modest man, I mean. The most beautiful thing about this palace, the most impressive thing, is just the carvings and the wood and all the colors. Now it's a little bit faded, the building's a little bit run down. It's from the early 1900s. Maybe they renovated a little bit in between and the smog of Ulaanbaatar got the better of it. I don't know the details of it, but it's really, really intricately carved. And it's very beautiful. And I think if you would have seen this like 100 years ago when people were actually living here, when the Khan was living here for 20 years, it must have been so impressive. I did not expect this to be Mongolia. This is straight out of the Marco Polo series on Netflix, so that's awesome. From the inside, temples we've been so far aren't too special. I mean, it's like an Eastern style room painted mostly in red, and it has some nice religious artifacts or statues in it, but the really quirky stuff is supposed to be in the actual Winter Palace itself, which we're going to head to right now. So this behind me is the Winter Palace. Honestly, I preferred the part that we just went through, which is probably like the day chambers of the Khan or something. There's not really anything here that gives a lot of explanations. A few temples, Chinese tourists or terrorists. But it's one of the lesser impressive buildings, but the goodies are supposed to be on the inside. So this is like a sort of waiting room, and this is apparently the seat of the Bogd Khan. And you can see that it's actually 25 cushions layered one above the other, each for one of the 25 titles and honors that the great Khan had. So that's pretty cool. Must have been super comfortable. I'm tempted to try it, but I'm not gonna, because I'm pretty sure there's no way of getting deported from Mongolia that's more efficient than that, but... This is the bed of the 8th Bogd Khan, which looks pretty cool. I mean, obviously you can't go into it, but it looks a little bit like a confession stand in a church or something. And the queen also had her own bed, apparently, separate from the Khan, and their living or sitting quarters were in between. So that's where she slept, and that is where the Khan slept.
This is actually a very interesting drawing. This is probably how it looked when the palace was built. You can see here the palace. And around it there was pretty much nothing. You can see like there was a house, and then here and there it was like a house. But all the other rest was just land and where people lived probably in a nomadic lifestyle. But now when you see where it's situated, it's like in the middle of the city with these high-rise buildings, neon boards next to it. It's very interesting to see the evolution through that time.
So to be honest, I like the temples, it's beautiful, the architecture is incredible, but the Winter Palace is a little bit underwhelming. I would not want to spend my winter here because it's a little bit, it's very dark actually. It's 2 stories, it's not really palace-like, but it is interesting to see the weird interests of the Bogd Khan, because downstairs, the entire downstairs floor, or almost the entire floor, is dedicated to stuffed animals. A grown man who has an entire floor full of stuffed animals. There, in this room you will find a lion, a leopard, a tiger. They even went to the effort to put a dead deer, or something that seemed like a dead deer, in the mouth of the tiger. You have so much here. You have sloths, fishes, turtles, anything, penguins even. And apparently this is all because the Bogd Khan was a little bit fascinated with exotic animals and had his own private zoo. So I'm not sure which of these were from the private zoo, which were gifts or whatever, but it's a little weird. That's what you get when people have too much money, I guess. But perhaps the biggest surprise of all was the level of technology that they already apparently had available in this time. I mean, come on, early 1900s, the Khan really had his stuff sorted out. This is Sukhbaatar Square. It is named after Sukhbaatar, the man who in 1921 declared on this very square the final independence of Mongolia from China. It's like the centerpiece of the city. It has a lot of pretty good looking buildings around it, like modern buildings and also more classical style. It's the most clean part of the city and it has a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of people usually chilling around sunrise. And this, right in the middle of the square, is a big statue larger than life of Genghis Khan himself, the most legendary figure in all of Mongolian history, the Great Khan, as people still call him here. Mongolians still call him their Great Khan. What's the reason for that? As we said, a Khan is like a leader of a tribe or a clan. Genghis Khan is the Great Khan or the Khan of Khans because he is the one who originally united Mongolia, who made sure that Mongolia was no longer just an assembly of random Khans doing their thing, but he is the Khan of all the other Khans who he either convinced to join him under his reign, or I don't know how many bloodshedding was exactly involved. Let's leave that up to history. I can't really explain it that well. But this is the Khan of Khans. Ever watchful, looking out over the Great Square. And now we're going to go into the rooftop bar at the Blue Sky Hotel and hopefully get a nice drink, still under happy hour.
We are now on the 23rd floor of the Blue Sky Lounge Bar. It's on top of the hotel, which is called the Blue Sky. It's the most modern building that's here in Ulaanbaatar. It's a really eye-catcher, and I would say the views are really amazing. Just having a glass of wine, enjoying the sunset and beautiful views across the new part of Ulaanbaatar. There's actually a whole side that's just very modern to Ulaanbaatar, which is actually very surprising. We didn't expect that at all. So. But here it goes. Cheers.
Cheers. So we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and let us know if you have any questions about Ulaanbaatar. Also, if you're interested in Mongolian food, go back to the last video which shows you the Mongolian food scene. The weird, the wonderful, everything. And please make sure to hit the subscribe button to follow the rest of our journey through Mongolia and then on to Beijing on the Trans Siberian Railway, Brussels to Beijing. And we hope to see you in the next one. Bye!